What if your daughter filmed a 15-second TikTok and it led to $40,000 in sales and a deal with Mark Cuban? That's exactly what happened to today's guest, Justin Baer, the serial entrepreneur behind Collars & Co. He's built everything from fundraising tech to event apps, and now he's redefining men's fashion with a shirt that looks like a dress collar but wears like a polo. In this episode, we talk Shark Tank, startup pivots, rapid testing, and the magic that happens when you really listen to your customers. This one's packed with insights for anyone who wants to turn ideas into income and have fun doing it. Let's jump in. Hey, Justin, how you doing today, man?
Doing great. Hey, Andy, thanks for having me.
You bet. Absolutely. I was so excited when your team reached out to come onto the podcast. I'm a huge Shark Tank fan. So when I saw a Shark Tank alum wanted to be on the podcast, I'm like, absolutely, absolutely. So obviously appearing on Shark Tank, securing a deal, you got it with Mark Cuban and Peter Jones. That's a pretty notable achievement. So what were some key takeaways from that experience? And then how did that influence your approach to business and leadership?
Yeah, right out of the gate, clarity sells, right? You got to be able to communicate what you do in 10 seconds or less. Obviously, you got to know your numbers cold. Investors aren't going to trust you. Your customers aren't going to trust you unless you kind of have the sense that you're sharp as a tack and you've got it down. The story behind the brand matters too, sometimes just as much as the product.
Right.
And also sometimes simplicity wins. I think some people get so wrapped up in trying to discuss their thing and it does this. And just straightforward simplicity wins.
Right.
Sometimes more than a clever idea.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, so we'll dive into kind of the whole generation of Collars & Co. and kind of how you led to that. But I appreciate you kind of just jumping right into the deep end with me. We'll keep it with the Shark Tank analogy there. That's awesome. So Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself, your upbringing, kind of how did you get to the point where you're now a very successful entrepreneur in multiple lanes? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so as growing up, always been an entrepreneurial kid. Even since I'm like young guy, always interested in business, always interested in the stock market. And, I was lucky enough to have parents that really pushed me and kind of let me lean in to some of these things. Like I'd have an invention idea. My dad would take me to the patent and trademark office in Northern Virginia and we'd get a tour.
Right.
So he really, cultivated and watered this interest that I had from a young age. And even, in high school, I was trying to come up with ideas, and in college, I had an idea, and that was kind of my first business, which was called the Cure Card. It was a cause-related loyalty marketing concept. And right when kind of like the boom of cause-related marketing started, this is about 2000, 2003. And from there, just always been coming up with ideas. Actually, that business, it was a cause-related marketing business. We raised over $2 million for Evelyn Lauder's Breast Cancer Research Foundation. And from there, created, I think I was telling you before, after actually selling that business, I worked in a small kind of private equity group for a short period of time, but then went back to New York. And as I was working there, I was a young single guy, and me and my friends would be going out, and we're like, you know what? People are going to these charity events. These were like these young professional charity events. It's like a hot thing. And it was great because you'd go there, it'd be $50. It'd be open bar. And like going to some other bars.
Win on multiple levels, right?
Yeah, it was a great spot to, meet girls or whatever. So I was like, well, how do we know what the next one is next week? And I said, well, we don't know. We get emails. John gets an email. Dave gets an email. I was like, well, let's put a calendar together, a nonprofit master list of nonprofit events. And I just did it. And then I just called it, of course, the official master calendar of nonprofit events. And then basically got email addresses and phone numbers of every nonprofit around the country. And people started using this master calendar. And I call it charity happenings. And then I'd start creating like a newsletter where you could see what's coming out and tried to make a little bit money on that. And it wasn't enough to like have me quit my job. But it was fun. And then nonprofit people, even the event planners would call me and say, "Hey, we want to do ticketing. Like, can you do Eventbrite? If you're familiar with Eventbrite."
Yep, I am.
I was
Yep.
like, um, kind of a big tech company back then, and it's a ticketing concept. So I'm like, you know what? Well, I'll have my guys in overseas create charity happenings ticketing. It'll be like Eventbrite, but just for nonprofit events. And we'll see what
Okay.
happens. So I did that.
Right.
I was making a little bit of money, still not enough to kind of quit my job.
Mm-hmm.
And then Eventbrite had iPad check-in.
Okay.
They had this iPad check-in, meaning like the old days. Some of your listeners probably old enough to remember. You'd go to an event and they'd have three sections. You'd have three tables, A to
Mm-hmm.
K to
Yep.
and you'd go there and you'd say, okay, what's your name? Say Justin Baer, and they
Mm-hmm.
flip over these pages and then cross your name,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then have to reconcile these lists at the end. The event planners take them like a couple hours. I'm like,
Right.
well, look, why don't you just take that Excel file, upload it into a
Okay.
database online into a cloud, and then pull the list down to multiple iPads. And this
Okay.
is right when the iPad 2 came out. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this, but instead of doing it just like Eventbrite, I'm going to make it for anybody with any list.
Okay.
And then that was it. So I kind of, it was taking, I don't know, maybe like 10 months to create. And I was kind of dragging my feet with it. And then all of a sudden, an event planner called me out of the blue from the old charity happenings days. And he says, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I've got this client. They want iPad check-in. Do you know anybody doing it? I was like, yeah,
Okay.
I'm working on mine.
Okay.
I said, well, I'm working on mine, but I'm dragging my feet a little bit. He's like, well, who's the client? He said, it's Google's holiday party. I was like,
Whoa.
we'll have it ready in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And so it was Google's holiday party. It's the first time we ever used, I only owned one iPad. They
Oh,
wanted
wow.
11 iPads outside. This is when Wi-Fi really wasn't pumping, that well outdoors.
Right.
Still is not great. And I remember they also wanted this like boarding pass concept where, you would just like a boarding pass, they'd get a QR code and they want to present you the pass. And on the app, it had a little, camera and would scan, it would, beep. So I remember I told all the volunteers, I said, look, you're going to have a lot of people bringing these things. I don't care if the iPad beeps or not beep. When they show you the thing, put it under it and go beep, like, oh, you're in, and let them right in. And after that, from there, it kind of just set the whole thing off. We had the Guggenheim Museum call me the next day.
Wow.
There's a lot of big, big companies in New York City that went to this, fun Google holiday party. They rented out the entire New York City Public Library. It was like 2,000 people. And from that, it just triggered the whole thing. But it was that kind of pivoting concept where I was like, I didn't know exactly. I knew there was something here. I didn't know exactly
Right.
quite the combination that's going to unlock this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, just stayed, with it. And that created what is now Check-in Easy. It was an iPad check-in app. And that got actually acquired by a company out in San Francisco, similar to a Cvent, which is called Certain Software. They do enterprise level ticketing. So if Oracle's not going to use Eventbrite, they're going to need something like more enterprise. And that was it, Check-in Easy. So it was like my first, out of college exit, and kind of started me off on the entrepreneurial journey.
I love it. I love it. So you mentioned before just the importance of pivoting, and there's a couple different pivots at that point. But let's dive into that a little bit if you wouldn't mind. Give me some of your I guess when do you know to pivot? That's probably one of the biggest questions people have. It's like, okay, do I hold on to this or do I jump into this next thing? At what point do you know, all right, now's the time to do that? Do you keep your foot in one while you're working on the other? I think timing's a big aspect. What are some of the key lessons that you learned for pivoting from one thing to the next?
Great question. And we do this now with Collars and Co. That's the fashion brand.
Mm-hmm.
You got to listen to the customers.
Okay.
You got to listen to what they want. I know you think you know what they want, but they're going to tell you whether they're going to buy your stuff or not buy it, or they're going to tell you what you need to buy. So a software company I started after Check-in Easy, and actually still own, Collars and Co. was actually a side hustle that kind of just blew up. But I had this idea for at my golf club, they made us do in-person etiquette. So like how to fix ball marks, people are kind of not taking care of the course. So my golf pro is had literally 50 of these meetings with 10 members each. I was like, this is insane, Dave. You got to take your course and just put it online. He's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I got to do it for you. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to create these etiquette courses online. Fine. So I did it. He loved it. And so I was literally just cold calling clubs and saying, hey, I'm going to do this online etiquette course. I'll put the whole thing together for you. Yeah. So I remember going down the list, and at the top, it was Arizona Country Club. I think they were like the third or fourth name on this kind of country club list. And I ended up speaking to this guy named Dave Stocky, good friend of mine now. And he was the membership director at the time. Now he runs large clubs out in California. And we were talking. I was like, here's my idea. He's like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's a pretty good idea. And I could sense like he wasn't like loving it. It wasn't like all in.
Right.
Okay, here's the money.
Sure.
I was like, well, what other problems are you having at the club?
Hmm.
He's like, actually, we can't get our members to read our emails. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, I can't get my members to read the emails. It's like, I'd love to be able to like text them. I'm like, you like text them like you text your friends? He's like, yeah, that would be amazing. Because everybody reads their text messages. I'm like, yeah, you're so right. I'm like, give me 3 weeks.
Mm.
I hung up the phone. I researched everything I could. I licensed this texting platform software, called him back. I said, Dave, I've got member text. It's a texting platform just for country clubs. He's like, great,
Oh,
I'll sign up. Boom.
that's
That was it.
fantastic.
300 bucks a month started me off. Now we have, I don't know, almost 650 clubs signed up.
Wow.
And that's just, but it started. So look, I love the idea of the etiquette course. I loved
Mhm.
it. It's a no brainer. I
Right.
get people calling me now. It took a ton of time, but for
Hmm.
some reason these clubs weren't buying it, even at like a cheap price. Like I was selling, I think it's like 1,500 bucks all in.
Hmm.
Honestly,
Right.
now it took so much time. I don't know if I'd do it for 10,000. It took that
Right.
much time. It was
Wow.
crazy. And the
Right.
clubs weren't taking me up on it like I thought they should.
Mm.
And I just felt like this is something really exciting. And of course, after I got Arizona, I called the next guy on the list. I said, hey, we've got this texting platform. Are you interested? He's like, yeah, that'd be great. So it's like you
Hmm.
can feel the momentum
Right. Right.
happening. And if your momentum and you're feeling the velocity happen on your original idea, amazing.
Right.
We're feeling that with Collars and Co. Like the idea of
Right.
having these polo shirts with firm collars, we felt that velocity and we kept going. And of course, we've iterated and we have now all kinds of products besides just polo shirts. But
Right.
the whole thing is you got to listen to your customers. If they're not buying, that's telling it. It doesn't matter how many
Right.
friends tell you it's a great idea.
Yes. Right.
Right?
That's
I
very
don't care if
good.
it's a good idea or a bad idea because you
Right.
never know. Friends will tell you if it's a bad idea. They might be
Right.
have other who knows. So test your idea as fast
Mm.
as you can.
Okay.
Minimal viable product. I see so many people. Like my wife has she's seen me do this, clothing business, and she's doing a fashion line for young girls. Like it's a tween dress business, like for
Okay.
um, weddings or
Hmm.
like party dresses for
Right.
girls 11 to 30. And she's like, oh, I want to do direct to consumer and I want to do ads and I want to do this. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Make like 10 of these dresses and
Right.
then go. We have a local store here that all the girls go to.
Hmm.
Go there. She's like, well, they're not going to just buy my stuff. I'm like, I don't want them to buy it. I'm going to go there and offer to them for free.
Right.
Here, take my dresses, put it on the rack. I'll sell it to you on
Right.
consignment. If they sell, amazing. If they don't,
Right.
we know your stuff doesn't sell.
Yeah.
If it does sell, great. Then we can
Right.
invest heavily.
Exactly.
So
Then you got something.
listen to the customers. Are they
Hmm.
saying this
Right.
is going to work?
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, no, I love it. And this idea of reading the room, listening to your customer, testing fast, I love all that. But I've been involved in multiple things where you get so married to an idea that this is going to work that you can't see what everybody else sees, right? Like the numbers aren't there, the sales aren't there, whatever the case is. Or you are so married to this idea that you are dumping in time and money and this kind of stuff.
yeah,
So to back to your idea of the etiquette course, right? Would it even be worth doing at this point? So that idea of being detached but still invested, that's a hard line to follow, but I think it's very, very good advice. I love it. Let's shift gears over to Collars and Co. because that's now kind of one of the main things that you are known for. There's other things like we found out, but tell us a little bit about how that was created. You said that it started as a kind of a side hustle, and now that's
yeah,
probably your main thing at this point. So tell us more about Collars and Co.
it is. So as you can see, I'm always coming up with ideas and
Yes.
love thinking about them and seeing what's going to happen. And this was during COVID.
Okay.
I lived in New York for 12 years, and I always wore what's a dress shirt under a sweater. If you know that look, I've got my sweater.
Okay.
It was getting hot in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
office.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And it's like the Midtown uniform. Everybody's
Hmm.
wears that. You see it on every bank commercial. Like they're all wearing that this look. And I hated wearing a long sleeve dress shirt under a sweater. I just
Okay.
found it really
Yeah. Yeah.
uncomfortable. It's hot. The sleeves always,
Right.
like pulling the sleeves down. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna create a polo shirt, but I'm gonna put like a really firm collar on it. So we can see here, this is like a really firm collar polo. I was like, I don't
Okay.
know what's gonna happen. Like,
Right.
it didn't cost me that much. It did take me about 6 months to kind of figure it out, to develop. And I'd learned,
Hmm.
I knew nothing about the fashion industry or factories. I just kind of figured it out. Just, I think that's fun. And I created a Shopify site, which I've never done before. And my 7-year-old
Okay.
daughter took pictures of me on the wall, and I was like the main, the model. And then I put the site up, and then I remember my 7-year-old daughter, she's into dancing. So, 4 years ago, TikTok was all about like dances. She's like, Dad, you got to do a TikTok video. I'm like, well, I'm not doing a dance. She's like, well,
Hmm.
just go. She held the phone in my closet, and I was like, holding it up. I was like, guys, don't even wear dress shirts. They suck. They're hot. I don't know.
Right.
You
Right.
can
Right.
check one of these dress collar polos. It gives you just the same look. Posted it. And then
Hmm.
that night we were sitting watching Netflix, and my phone beeped. Like when you're in Shopify, you get a
Hmm.
sale, it goes ka-ching.
Yeah. Right.
And the phone just started ringing.
Uh-uh.
People were into this idea. And I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. This is crazy. First month we did 40,000 in sales.
Wow.
We didn't even have the merchandise, right? Because I was
Yeah.
going back to the thing. I'm like, I just made 300 of them. So I had to like write everybody, and like, I'm so sorry.
Right.
Shipment's coming. It's going to be 2 weeks
Right.
late. I was fulfilling orders in my office at the home. My daughters were
Hmm.
helping me. We were stuffing bags. And just from there, it just kind of grew. And, fast forward now 4 years, we're on Shark Tank. We're actually on there twice with an update.
Uh-huh.
But we're not just known for polo shirts. We have a full knitwear line. We've got
Mm.
incredible blazers that are like, you can take the performance blazer we have and like roll it up into a ball, stick it in your backpack, pull it out. It looks amazing. It's got some cool features in it. We did dress pants that are more pull on. They're kind of like pull on chinos. So super comfortable. Our whole
Hmm.
concept is, looking great, looking sharp, elevated casual, but doing it in a comfortable way. We know guys
Right.
don't love dressing up. We're going to make
Hmm.
it not only comfortable, but you're going to look really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just kind of, now we're
I
in
love
our
it.
warehouse here. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. It is just,
You blinked.
it just happened. But it's been a lot of hard work and
I bet.
fun. Um, a lot of hours put in, and
I imagine.
um, yeah, but I'm obsessed with it. I think that is something that's important. I don't know.
Hmm.
I think it's not totally key, but I'm thinking about this thing all the time.
Right.
Definitely
Right.
obsessed with the idea
Right.
and trying to make it work. And what are all the angles, and what am I not thinking about? And what are the marketing angles? What are the other products that we need to be bringing out? And what's made other companies like this successful? I read every book I could
Hmm.
about, Ralph Lauren and all these brands, and
Hmm.
trying to
Hmm.
just pull out any nugget I could
Right.
with it. And just, it's been fun, and labor of love for now.
I love it. I love it. You referred to your viral TikTok video that your daughter was filming, which I think is just adds to the how cool that was. Is that something that you continue to leverage digital platforms, or was that kind of just what launched it? I get what lessons can entrepreneurs learn from how to utilize social media?
Yeah, I think if it really wasn't for that TikTok video to go kind of viral, I think TikTok, at least back then, it's changed a little bit now. I think Instagram's changed. It was like such a good discovery platform
Right.
where the best content won. Whereas, Instagram, it's like I only get, I don't really get new videos on there.
Hmm.
It's mostly the celebrities I follow, or Tiger
Right.
Woods, or these sports stars. Where on TikTok, it's like people I've never heard of before, and it's just great
Yeah.
ideas win on that
Yeah.
platform. And so
Yeah.
it's a great proving ground. Hey, do you have something here? And it's not just, if you created a bunch of videos and people didn't buy, that wouldn't be an idea like, okay, your idea is terrible. It's that, but what if people liked it, or if people watched it, or people commented and wrote you? Then you're kind of onto something potentially. So it's a great way to test your ideas.
Right.
If I had a new idea, honestly, I'd just go on TikTok and be like, "Hey, I've got this idea. Love your opinions. Please comment below. Here's what it
Yeah.
is. It's
Right.
boom.
Yeah.
See
Yeah.
what people think."
Right.
And you'd be surprised what you can get from it. And it's maybe a little bit watered down from when it was 4 years ago, but definitely still a valuable asset for any
Mhm.
entrepreneur. And you can really grow brands around social organic. For
Right.
us, we're at our scale right now.
Hmm.
Tough for us to really see massive scale in sales. Even if
Hmm.
we do get, a couple of videos to hit over 1 million views or such, like it's still not gonna move the needle for us in a
Right.
way. We'll make some sales, but when you're
Sure.
just starting out, you get 10 sales, it's huge.
Right.
So definitely worth at least trying.
Right. Yeah, and to your point, it depends on where you're at in the entrepreneurial or business journey, right? To your
Yeah.
point, where you're at, maybe not as much, but for people that are just getting started, this is a great way to. I love that idea of just testing theories, right? Like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Here's an example of that. Give me your thoughts on that. People love to give opinions. You have to. It's one of those things you have to be careful what you ask for. But again,
Yeah.
that's better to iterate early on than be married to an idea and then on the backside understand that like yeah that really was not that was not a great idea.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's talk a little bit about kind of your scale because it was I would say a meteoric rise from a kind of a side hustle into this idea where what was the time frame between starting it and then getting on Shark Tank? What was your time frame between start to there?
It was a year and a half
Okay, that's
um,
pretty quick.
that we got on there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Shark Tank when you applied. So when you have some an idea like this, you've probably said it to somebody else, or maybe someone said
Hmm.
it to you, and you found out, oh, you should go
Sure.
on Shark Tank.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
like, I'm not getting on this show. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's 30,000 people apply on that. So
Right.
I honestly, what I did was I'm like, maybe I have to find somebody I know that can get me
Hmm.
on, like, or know a
Okay.
producer or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And honestly, I didn't know anybody, but I tried. And then it was just late one night. All the kids were
Yeah.
sleeping. I was like, I'm gonna go on ABC.com, just like everybody else, and
Yep.
apply, and we'll see what happens. I remember I filled it out, short answers, because I'm like, this is never gonna happen. And then next thing you know, they called back and said, they actually say like you're on the show, but that's really not true. That's really like one of 10 interviews that you have to do to even
Okay.
make it on. And
Wow.
and then even when you're on the show, or even if you tape the show, there's no guarantee that you're actually even
Mm.
on the show. Like they could
Right, right,
film it,
right.
they don't have to air it. In fact, my cohort of entrepreneurs, only half the people that filmed aired.
Oh,
So it's just like the biggest kick in the pants ever, going through that whole process and flying
yeah.
out there, and of course telling your close friends, and then all of a sudden not making on the show. And they
Hmm.
tell you that, or and you kind of know that, but it reminds you that when you're on the show, you've got to make it exciting.
Right.
This is a television show, and when Andy says, "I'm going to give you $100,000 for 10%," you say no. Like if you just said,
Yeah.
"Okay, that's great, Andy, we'll be
Right.
great friends,"
Right.
that's not exciting television. So,
Yeah.
and now that you're in there for like an hour and 15 minutes, and then they
Hmm.
dice it up how they want and
Sure.
make it
Sure.
even more exciting with music.
Right. Dramatic and the
Very
whole
dramatic,
whole thing.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was a
Where we
wild
pause
experience.
to go to a commercial, right, and leave people
Yep,
hanging. Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. I loved it because I did watch right before we got on here, the initial interview with them, the one that got aired anyways. Um, you played, I guess, hardball is the best way to say that. I mean, you knew your valuation, you felt confident about that, and you got some pushback from some of the sharks on that. Tell me a little bit about what was going through your head at that point, because I would imagine, I mean, yes, you know your numbers, yes, you knew what you wanted, but also that's got to be a little nerve-wracking, right? Standing in front of all those folks knowing what you want, but also trying to kind of stand up for what you believe. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's petrifying. I don't know if the show does this on purpose, but like you went in there, they said, okay, you're gonna go look at the set. You look at the set ahead of time, and then
Okay.
I was like, okay, well, can I practice? And they're
Uh-huh.
like, no, but you can like tell me what you're gonna say as we're walking back in front of the doors. I'm like, what?
Okay. Come on now.
So, and then also, it's only one take. If you screw it up, that's it.
Wow.
I'm like, oh my God. So you're already like scared to death. And of
Yeah.
course, I thought about the evaluation ahead of time. I felt like I
Sure.
had a good value.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they go in and they chop it in half.
Yep. Yep.
And, but, I guess at some point I was like, this is going to be much more valuable
Mm-hmm.
to have one of these sharks on the team. And we ended up doing the deal. And you hear a lot of times, even if you do the deal, that they try and change it.
Right.
The entrepreneurs change it on the sharks. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't change it at all, just how it is. Probably
Mm-hmm.
one of the first deals, on Shark Tank. We didn't really do much negotiating. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and the terms came in nicely, and Mark was super cool, and his team
Mm-hmm.
was great, and nothing hidden or
Yeah.
so it was a really nice deal, and we're thrilled to have Mark and Peter on the team and be
Fantastic.
able to reach out to them, and they've been pretty cool and
Yeah.
communicate. I can text Mark and he'll write me back right away. It's pretty wild. The guy's so
Wow.
busy, but um, yeah, I do try and keep my asks to a very minimum.
Yes, of
Yeah,
course. Of course you would, right? You
yeah,
gotta,
but
yeah,
no, it was a really wild time
that's
and
awesome.
a wild experience, but it worked out.
I love it. I love it. Well, Justin, it feels like we just got started here, but to try to, keep everybody, wanting for more here at this point. Let's shift gears a little bit to kind of our three key questions. We always like to have our guests answer a few questions, again, along the lines of empowered learning. We've learned so much about your entrepreneurial journey and how to pivot and all the necessaries for that. So just a couple questions for you here as we wrap up here. Who is a leader that you admire most and try to emulate?
God, that's tough. I mean, there's a lot. There's many people out there. Maybe I'd say Phil Knight.
Okay,
Someone
yeah,
that I kind
Nike,
of
absolutely.
look to, and Nike, and built a great brand. And he was really known for his grit. He sold these shoes. He had an idea, sold these shoes out of the back of his car.
Hmm.
Um, you know, his intuition, drove him.
Hmm.
And so I would say Phil Knight, and reading that book would be a pretty good one for people to look to.
Absolutely, love it. Have you watched Air?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's a
did.
good one, huh?
That's
Yeah,
fun.
my son is obsessed with Nike, so that we had to watch that one. All right, how about what learning has most impacted you in the last year? So this could be everything from a conversation to a book that you read, a podcast you listened to. What sticks out at you looking back over the last 12 months or so that was just like, wow, that really kind of really upped my game or just kind of changed my thinking on a certain aspect of something.
Kind of getting back to this minimal viable product and seeing if your idea is
Okay,
going to work or not.
right.
I listened to two podcasts that actually had the same similar concept. One
Okay.
was the on cloud people, um, where they had the on cloud running shoes, kind of look wacky looking shoes that are now really popular. Roger Federer invested in them. And what they said was they knew they had a winning idea. Same guy that Red Bull said the exact same thing.
Hmm.
But they went to a marathon and they had, like 100 people try these shoes on, right? Because at the time they wanted to be a serious running company.
Okay.
They knew they had an idea when 50% of the people hated the idea, but
Interesting.
50% of the people loved it. They didn't want to walk away there with people being indifferent about it or saying, yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is the
Okay.
50% that are going to love the idea are going to be like your ambassadors, and they're going to
Hmm.
take this idea and tell 20 people about it.
Right.
Versus if you just had this, like, okay, it's an okay idea,
Yeah.
and it's not that different, it's just a little
Right.
bit better,
Right.
then it's not going to generate that fire and that heat for this idea. And I kind of take that to our concept, right? When we first launched it, I'm sure we had, we have, I don't know, maybe over 400,000 or 500,000 customers now, but there's probably customers that saw the idea like 4 years ago and was like, oh, I don't know if I love that idea because I don't know if I
Yeah.
want that, right?
Right.
But we had these like, not these ambassadors, but these people that were really loving this concept,
Sure. Yep.
and they are what kind of what helped grow the idea. And so,
Hmm.
kind of look for something that's different. And the Red Bull guy said that as well, because if you taste Red Bull, it tastes kind of terrible actually. And he's like that's
Honestly,
what they
yes.
wanted. They wanted that. They wanted it to kind of taste like medicine. And so half the
Interesting.
people hate it, half the people love it.
Okay.
So something. So anyway,
Interesting. All right.
that was pretty cool.
I love it. No, I mean that leans into the idea of how important it is to stand out and be your own unique thing. Hate me or love me, you're gonna, you're gonna get following one way or the other. So I love it. Okay. All right. Wrapping up here. You mentioned that you got a young family, a couple girls. What would you do? What do you are you speaking into them to empower learning for future generations? The lessons that you've learned. What do you want for them that you would want to kind of imprint on them and make sure that they understand?
I think it goes back to this being able to like pitch your idea. And if
Okay.
you take it one step back, it's learning how to speak to people you don't know, pitching
Okay.
your idea to people you know,
Right.
talking to people you don't know, standing
Mm.
in line and making conversation with people you don't know. right? That is such an important skill, being able to make cold calls. Just like if you kind of go back to a lot of these ideas I'm talking about, they were all like phone based. Like I just literally cold called Arizona Country Club and, became friends with Dave, who I've now seen him in person a few times over the phone. And so like when my daughter drops a fork on the floor at a restaurant, I say, get up, go to the person behind the little booth and say,
Okay.
hey, I dropped my fork at the floor. Can I have another one?
Mm-hmm.
Versus having us do it.
Yes. Right.
Empowering them to give them confidence that they can go up to people and ask for what they want or uh, persuade them for something. So I think that's a really good skill. And, I'm trying to get my kids to do that because nobody likes making cold calls. It's pretty scary. And I think it starts with just giving them the confidence to do this. And anyway, I'm probably not time, but I do have a good story about my dad, who's my late dad.
Go for it.
Who gave me this. So when I was in high school, I had this idea for, it was a job board for car dealers, just some wacky idea. And, I was probably turning 16 and that sparked the idea and I was getting into cars. And so my dad's like, okay, well, why don't you put a media kit together? And I did. And he's like, okay, well, here's the yellow pages and go call down the list of car dealers and see if you can get an appointment. So I literally just made phone calls and called in. Most people didn't even answer or left a message. And then actually I got on the phone with this guy from Coons. I think it was Coons Ford on Reisterstown Road in Baltimore. He said, come on in. I was like, Dad, you're not gonna believe this. Coons Ford said, come on in and present the idea. I was like, this is unbelievable. He's like, okay, well, get all your stuff together. We went in together. We sat on the guy's desk. He was a sales manager, and I'm pitching the idea. He's like, oh, that's a pretty good idea. And he's not like he's ready to buy, but he was just
giving the opportunity.
Giving an opportunity, just a kid to tell him. So anyway, I left that meeting. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I called and he told me some things to do and not do. And it wasn't until like 20 years later, my dad's passed away since then, that I realized my dad called ahead to Coons ahead of time. And he said, my son's going to be giving you a call. You take that meeting. Because it's going to give him that confidence to know that you can pick up the phone and get it. And so, it's just like one story. It kind of just goes back to, what I was dealing with growing up. But, I think that's important. And so, take that story for what you want.
No, I absolutely. My dad's passed away as well, and I often think back of all of the amazing lessons that I gained from being blessed to be his son, and what a cool way to support you, right? I mean, it's kind of even better that you didn't know, right? And immediately just to kind of find out on the back end to know how he was kind of paving the way for you to be successful. And could that have been the spark that really lit you on this journey to where you're going at this point? So that's really cool.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you spending time with me here. I appreciate your team reaching out. Obviously, we didn't know each other before today, but I had a great time getting to know you and sharing your story with our listeners. So I appreciate your time, and I wish you all of the greatest success moving forward.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.
All right. Yep. Take care. See ya.
See ya. Bye.
From Cure Card to Collars & Co., Justin Baer reminded us that the most powerful business tool isn't funding, it's curiosity. Test fast, stay flexible, and if you're obsessed with solving problems for real people, momentum will follow. If this episode got your wheels turning, hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to bet on their own ideas. Until next time, keep learning, keep building, and keep asking, what's the customer really trying to tell me?